Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Good Morning Show with Candy Bryan. I am so grateful that you've tuned in this morning with us. It is Town Hall Tuesday on the Good Morning Show. Let's see who's joining us this morning. If you're joining us, the Good Morning Show is your place of faith in the morning. We pray that you are encouraged this morning. And again, thank you for joining us. Good morning, Facebook family. If you could leave a comment, tell us where you're tuning in from. And also, if you are watching, make sure that you go to StreamYard.com/Facebook. That is the way that we will be able to see your comments. So again, go to StreamYard.com/Facebook, and we want to see your comments. We want to see where you're tuning in from. And thank you so much for tuning in this morning again. All right, Facebook family, good morning. If you're tuning in from YouTube, good morning as well. Thank you for tuning into the Good Morning Show. Good morning, Ronald. Thanks for tuning in. He's always he's the early bird. Ronald, good morning to you. Thanks for tuning in. Who else is tuning in? Sherry Ann, good morning. You are tuning in from Orlando. Woo, Orlando is here. We are representing this morning. Awesome. All right, I think my video is good. It looks like my video was playing a little bit of catch up. If you guys can see the video and it's streaming and the sound looks good, give me some thumbs up emojis, give me some hand claps, give me some praise hands this morning. I want to thank you for tuning into the Good Morning Show with Candy Bryan. This is your place of faith in the morning, and this is Town Hall Tuesday. So I want to just briefly share a little bit about what Town Hall Tuesday is. So last couple weeks, even last month, we decided that we wanted to, get involved in the conversation as people of faith. We want to make sure that we are not only engaging in the conversation, but engaging in activities and doing things that will help bring about change in our community, in addition to praying for our community. And so Town Hall Tuesdays has been a safe space to actually have the conversation about race. And we hope that you leave the show feeling encouraged, because there's so much negativity going on in our world. So this Tuesdays is our place to talk about it. And I have briefly some news updates. I posted this. I was turning on the news. I hadn't watched the news in maybe, a couple hours or a couple days. And I turned on the TV to see a CNN story about gun violence that played out over the 4th of July weekend. And as I began to scroll, I was looking at the different stories, and this headline caught my eye, that children were among the victims of the 4th of July weekend violence across the U.S. And of course, there is sensationalism that happens in news and media. Not every media outlet, but certainly that headline caught my eye. And I started to read about how several children were caught in the crossfire of shooting violence. And there were also adults that were impacted. There were people who were killed across the country on Independence Day. And it was jarring. It really shook me. I mean, I was already in tears after watching Oprah's special yesterday. I don't know how many of you caught it. It's on my page if you want to go check it out, where she was talking to 100 fathers, Black fathers, including Tyler Perry and some guests that she's had on her show. And they were talking about being fathers and having conversations with their children about racism, police brutality, what to do to save your life. And many of them were in tears. They were heartbroken, considering the fact that they have to start telling their 5-year-old sons and daughters what they need to do to survive. And it breaks your heart. So I'd love to see your comments this morning as we bring on our very special guest this morning to talk about her book and to really talk about her experience and now her legacy. Dr. LaVon Bracy is with us this morning. I'll bring her on here in just a moment. And when I think about her writing this book, when I think about the experiences that she's had growing up in a segregated area and then being a part of integration, I mean, there's just so much history and wisdom and knowledge that we're going to get this morning that we need as she shares pieces of her legacy and what she's sharing with people all around the country. And I pray that you would go get her book. We'll talk a little bit about the book, and I have a link for you to take a look at. But please leave your comments with us this morning. We want to hear from you. And we also want your questions for Dr. Bracy here as I bring her on. So I'm going to bring you on, Dr. Bracy, and welcome you to the show. This is such an honor to have you. Good morning, Dr. Bracy.
Good morning. I'm delighted to be with you today.
This is such an honor. You know, I was reading your bio and I thought, okay, we thought we knew who Wonder Woman was. Wonder Woman has nothing on you. So I would love for all of you to meet and get to know Dr. Bracy this morning. She was watching last week as her son, Senator Randolph Bracy, was my guest, and we connected after the show, and I was so grateful that she reached out and took an interest in coming on to talk about her children's books. So, Dr. Bracy, would you introduce yourself to the Good Morning Show family?
Good morning, show family. I have lived in Orlando, Florida for the last almost 30 years, and I am a native Floridian. I spent my adolescent years in St. Augustine, Florida. And if your guests may not know, St. Augustine is the oldest city in the United States. And I was there in the 50s and the 60s, and I was there during turbulent times. My dad was a minister there, and my mom was a school teacher. And my father was the president of the NAACP. And he said he was going to change St. Augustine for the better, because if it's the oldest city in the United States, then it ought to be a model for the rest of the world. And things did not go according to his plan. So, go ahead.
So I was going to say, correct me if I'm not on point here, but was there a time where he was going to not be as involved, and then just couldn't help but stay in the fight?
Well, yes. When we were in St. Augustine, as I said, my mother was a school teacher, and because Dad was so active in St. Augustine, and the powers that be called him a troublemaker, my mother lost her job. They fired her. They fired her because of my dad's activities with the NAACP. So mother was extremely upset. She got another job in a place called Bunnell, which was about 30 miles from St. Augustine. So she had a commute in the morning and a commute in the afternoon. Mother was a reading teacher, and I would say one of the best reading teachers the world had ever seen. And Mom stayed at that second job for a year and a half. And the principal called her in and said, "Miss Wright, you are the best reading teacher I have, but I've been instructed that you can no longer work here because of your husband's activities and what he's doing in St. Augustine." It got so bad in St. Augustine that my dad wrote Martin Luther King and asked him if he could come to St. Augustine. He did come to St. Augustine. The Ku Klux Klan ran us out of St. Augustine. They, it was a terrible situation. We could not answer the phone. We could not do anything because of the abuse that we would take if we picked up the telephone. So when the Ku Klux Klan decided they were going to burn a cross at our house, my mom said, "I have had enough. We have to leave St. Augustine." And she gave my dad an ultimatum. "If you don't leave, I'm going to take my 4 kids and we all are going to leave." and you'll be in St. Augustine fighting all by yourself.
Wow.
And Dad knew my mom was really serious, so he
Mhm.
sought to find another job. And he found a job in Gainesville as a minister there. My mother had gotten another job as a teacher. This is her third job. And
Wow.
when we moved to Gainesville, she told my dad, listen, you have to promise me that you will not join the NAACP. You will not be the president of the NAACP. That we will live like average human beings.
Mm.
That our kids will not have to worry about the Ku Klux Klan, and you will not have any activities. And my dad said, I promise you, I'm just going to be a pastor, and we're going to have a wonderful life, and we're going to have a quiet life. And that lasted for 4 months.
Right, right. As I can imagine, you were about how old at the time when this was happening, and you when you moved and he vowed to not do this. About what age were you?
I was about 14, 13, 14 when we moved to Gainesville.
Got
And
it.
so Dad said that, you know, you can go to school and his brother can go to school and it's going to be just fine. And so Mom had another reading job and she was loving it. And one day she went to church and the lady stopped her and said, oh, Miss Wright, we are so delighted that Reverend Wright has become the president of the NAACP.
Oh my goodness.
And we are going to change Gainesville and we are going to make some noise and everybody's going to know who we are. My mother was about 5 feet and she was very fair. And I think my mom turned purple right in
Oh my
front.
gosh.
Just livid.
I can't imagine.
She says, I don't believe he's doing this again. So when we got home from church, she told my dad, you promised me you wouldn't do this. And Dad said, well, listen, I'm just going to do this for 1 year. 1 year turned to 18 years that he was president of the NAACP in Gainesville.
Wow. My goodness.
Yes. So, as president of the NAACP, he began to see what needed to be done in Gainesville. This was 1964.
Mm,
Brown versus the Board of Education was
mm.
1954. 10 years has passed, and schools are still segregated. So Dad goes to school board meeting and says, when are you going to integrate the school system?
Mm.
The school board members said that the climate is not right. Gainesville is not ready. So we don't have any immediate plans to do anything. In fact, we're just going to ignore Brown versus the board. And Dad says, that's fine. So he filed a suit with for the NAACP with my name on it. And he won the lawsuit. And the judge said you have to integrate with all deliberate speed. So now we need to integrate the school system. So Dad has to find students to go from the all black school to the all white school. So he decides, well, I'm going to start at high school. I'm going to
Mm.
look at 10th, 11th, and 12th grade because I can have a graduation the very next year. So he began to knock on doors, asking parents to take their kids out of the all black school and put them in the all white school. He knocked and he knocked and he knocked on doors. He found a 10th grader and 11th grader, and he found no 12th grader.
Mm.
So I was in the 12th grade at that time,
Yeah.
and my brother was in the 12th grade. We were not twins,
Mhm.
but I skipped a grade, so we were in the same grade from fourth grade on. So I told my brother, I said, listen, let's go to the all-white school. Let's leave Lincoln High and go to Gainesville High. And Dad will really feel real good because he has someone that's now a senior. And my brother said, listen, I don't care what Dad may say. I'm not about to leave an all black school where I am real popular. I'm in the band, I'm in the student council, I have 3 girlfriends. I'm not about to leave my 3 girlfriends and go to this all white school. Now, you may want to please Dad, I'm not going to do it. So my brother wouldn't go. And so I prayed about it, thought about it, told Dad, here I am, send me to the all white school. I'll take my senior year from Lincoln High School and transfer to Gainesville High. And that's what I did.
So you're a trailblazer, like your dad, as you were telling the story, and I'm hearing the initiative of this young woman who skipped a grade. So you weren't 17, or you might have been just about 16.
Well, I really graduated from high school at 16.
And so the initiative that you had to be a trailblazer, I could see that your father clearly passed that down to you. And I know that, as well as everyone who's listening, first of all, I'm captivated by the story. So for the Good Morning Show family, you may not hear a whole lot of questions this morning, because I feel like we're getting rich knowledge and wisdom from, a lot of us. Now, I won't say us, because I'm not a millennial, but a lot of the millennials and a lot of people in their 40s around my age, we can get out in March and we can speak about the injustices, but none of us have actually lived through what you grew up in and what you lived through. So I am so grateful that you are all tuned in. I would ask the Good Morning Show family to do me a favor and hit the share button. Right now, I want to get into the rest of the story and then talk about Dr. Bracy's book, but you have got to share this. This is something that I think is going to enrich our lives, and we're all going to leave this broadcast differently than when we came on. So go ahead and hit the share button, invite a friend in the comments, tag a person that you'd love to join us this morning. So, Dr. Bracy, you did this, and I can only imagine what your mother had to say about your decision. Talk to us a little bit about her reaction of you wanting to go to an all-white school.
Well, initially, my mother was livid because my dad said, listen, when we made the decision, he said, we can't tell your mom right now. He said, because she is not going to agree for this. So she would see my dad and I talking, and then when she would come around, we completely stopped. So she said, listen, she told my dad, if you think LaVon is going to that all-white school just to satisfy you in that NAACP, you got another thing coming. She's not going. So it took my dad all summer to convince her that I would be safe and I could do this. And Dad was saying, I can't ask other parents to send their kids if I'm not willing to send one of my kids to
Wow.
school. So I can't do that. So Mom reluctantly said yes. And then the FBI comes to the house and tells my dad, this is too dangerous for us to do in Gainesville right now. The climate is not good. We're asking you to change your mind and delay this for 3 or 4 years. Dad says, absolutely not. Well, the FBI says we cannot guarantee these kids' safety. We would have to ask that they participate in nothing at school. They cannot congregate anywhere where students are. They can't go to basketball games, to football games. They can't go to a senior prom. Anything where there are large numbers, they cannot do because it's too dangerous. So my dad says, okay, I understand that. But we are still going to integrate this school. So the night before going to school, my dad and my mom said, listen, this is probably going to be the most challenging year of your life, and that you will remember this year more so than you remember anything that you've done. And mom told me, she said, listen, I want you to kill them with kindness. If they are mean to you, be nice to them. And I went to bed that night and did not sleep because I didn't know what the next day would bring. I tossed and I turned. I was up and ready for school 2 hours before school started. Mom got up extra early, fixed me a big breakfast. I just had really knots in my stomach and couldn't eat. I just had some juice. And the plan was every day, my dad would take me and the two others, the 10th and the 11th grader. We were escorted by two Gainesville policemen, one in front of the car, one in the back of the car every day. So the first day of school, we get to the school. My dad has prayer with us before we get out, and he tells us to have a good day. I go walk to my class. The 10th and 11th grader will go to their class. As I walk to the class, a group of students stop me and says, you are not welcome here. About five of them spit on me and they called me the N word. And they said, this will be the worst year of of your life. You are not going to spoil our graduation and our school by being the first black because we don't want you here. And we're going to make sure that you don't graduate. So I went to class, and when I sat down, I went to the first seat on the first row. The entire class got up and they went and stood up on the other side. And the teacher says, why are you standing? And they said, I'd rather stand than sit by the N word. So she says, you don't have to sit by her, just stand up. So every day I could anticipate being spit on. Every day I could anticipate these words, the N word. And I had to watch myself every time I would sit down because they would put at my seat, and during those times they had assigned seats at school. They would put dead roaches and dead rats and snakes at the bottom of my chair. And then in the seat, they would put tacks. And so if I sat down without looking at my seat, there would be a tack in it and I have to jump right up. So I knew every day that I would bring aluminum foil to get the rats and the snakes and what have you by my seat and roll them up and put them in a brown bag and dispose of them. The most difficult thing was trying to negotiate when to go to the restroom. I knew I could not go to the restroom when the classes changed because I knew I would be attacked. So I'd have to go to class, wait for 10 minutes, then ask for a pass, run to the restroom, run back before anybody would know I was there. So then I had to try to watch the intake of liquid all day so that I wouldn't have to go to the restroom any more than once a day because I knew what would happen if they ever caught me in the restroom. No one wanted me at the school.
Yeah.
Teachers didn't want me there. Students didn't want me there. If I go in the lunchroom, the entire lunchroom would leave. I'd have the whole lunchroom by myself. Go to the library, I'd have the library by myself. It was like I had a plague, and no one wanted to be caught talking to this unwanted senior who was going to disrupt their graduation because a black person was going to be in line.
Dr. Bracy, I want to make sure that I put this out there for everyone who's viewing right now, because I know I'm uh, just really overwhelmed by hearing the story. I know that you all have questions out there for Dr. Bracy, so now is the time to put your questions here as she's recounting her time being integrated into an all-white school. Thank you for joining us if you're tuning in a little late here. My guest this morning is Dr. LaVon Wright Bracy. She's an educator, an author. Her father was one of the first president in St. Augustine for the NAACP.
Yes, it was.
And president of the NAACP in Gainesville. And this discussion is eye-opening. And I feel like so many of us need to hear this from a first account, someone who actually has gone through this. What were some of the thoughts that you were having every morning? I can't imagine the amount of anxiety that you had every day.
I had anxiety every day, and the challenge I had was to share as little of my story as possible. I couldn't tell my brother what was going on because he would tell my mother what was happening. I couldn't tell my father what was going on because he would feel guilty that I was having to endure this. And I definitely couldn't say anything to my mom. So every day when they would ask, "How was school today?" my response was, "I survived another day," not giving any of the detail as to what happened. And I did this until I couldn't do it anymore. When I got to school one day and 6 or 7 boys jumped me, they beat me unmercifully. And I thought it would be the last day on earth. I really did. So I the bell rang, and as I was on the ground, nobody stopped to assist me. I was bleeding profusely. And after everybody went to class, I got up and I stumbled into the principal's office with blood just coming everywhere. I told the principal that I had been beaten. And the principal said to me, "How do I know that you didn't leave home like that? I didn't see anybody beat you. I don't know of anybody that would beat you. And if in fact anybody did this to you, you ought to know by now we don't want you at our school. Why don't you just go back to where your folk are and where you are welcome? Because this is unwelcome territory." So I asked the principal, I said, "May I use the telephone to call my dad?" He said, "No, you can't use the phone." During those times, they were pay phones. They were little red booths that you would go in and put a dime in and make a telephone call. So I struggled across the street where there was a pay phone, called my dad, told my dad that I had been beaten. Could he come and get me at school? Dad came to get me, took me to the only black doctor that was in Gainesville. And the doctor said, "Oh, boy, you've been beaten up pretty badly." So I have stitches from the front of my head all the way to the back of my head where I was beaten. And I was hoping that I put my hand in front of my face so I wouldn't have any permanent scars on my face. And so the doctor says, "You need to go home for 3 or 4 days." He says, "You're swollen, you're beaten, and you don't need to return to school anytime soon." So I told Dad, I said, "Dad, I'm not going back. I just can't take it any longer." He says, "Well, I tell you what, you don't have to go back. You can go back to Lincoln High School. You don't have to go back." So I went home and I stayed home one day, 2, 3 days, and I had nothing to do but think about that experience. About the 4th day, I said, "Dad, take me back to school." He said, "I thought you weren't going back." He said, I said, "Dad, if I don't go back to school, they win. I lose." And I said, "You know what? They just don't have to kill me because I cannot let them win." So
Wow.
My mom did not want me to go back.
Right.
And I said, Mom, I have to do this.
Mm.
I said, because someone has to be able to show them what needs to be done. And so
Wow.
I went back and they redoubled their efforts. I mean, now they're putting 7 or 8 snakes and what have you at the seats, and they're just being just unbelievably rude.
Yeah.
And I just says, I'm going to endure this.
Wow.
I'm going to graduate. Um, the parents had a protest because my picture was going to be in their yearbook.
Yeah.
And they said that people didn't want a black person
Mm.
picture in their all white yearbook. It never had happened before.
Yes.
They won't be able to show it to their friends. They won't be able to brag about graduation. So I don't know what the photographer did. He tried to make my skin as white as possible, as light as possible, so the parents wouldn't be so offended. So what happened with many of them is they cut my picture out of their yearbook before they would even take it because they refused to have a black person in it. So it was time for graduation. And I must tell you that the teachers weren't kind either. They did everything they could to make sure that I had a difficult time. In fact, if I wrote a paper, they would just put an F on the paper. They wouldn't put any comments, just an F. So my dad decided one day, he said, I know the head of the English department at the University of Florida. I'm going to have him edit your paper before you turn it in. He did that. I turned that paper in and it was an F. So my dad and I had a meeting with the teacher and the principal. And the principal said, I don't question what my staff does. My staff said the paper's an F. So it's an F. There's nothing else I have to say about it.
Mm.
So they tried. If they could have flunked me out, they could have. But when I transferred, I had about a probably 3.8 out of a 4.0. So they couldn't flunk me. I think the requirements with then was 2 points or 2.5 to graduate. So even they gave me all that, they still couldn't bring my average down enough to stop me from graduating. So when it came time to graduate, the rumor was that we didn't kill her yet, but we're going to get her at graduation.
Mm.
And I says, how do I tell this information to my parents? I said, I don't tell them. I just tell them I don't want to graduate. I don't want to march. So my brother and I were graduating at the same time. His graduation was at Lincoln Auditorium. And mine was at the McConnell Center at the University of Florida. And I said, Dad, let's not let me graduate. Let's all go to Phil's graduation. Let's go to his graduation as a family. And Mom said, listen, all of the hell you've been through,
Mhm.
you are going to March. And I was saying, oh no, don't make me march. I said, let's not do that. So I was so afraid because they had sent me notes. They had done everything and says, we are going to kill you at graduation. So I couldn't sleep because I just said, this is going to be a mess, graduation. Excuse me. So we got to graduation. My dad went to my graduation. My mom went to my brother's. And we got there. When I got there, I saw all of Gainesville policemen there. Everybody was there. And I said, well, maybe they've heard as well about what's going to happen. So they came to the car and escorted me to the line. So I got in the line I was so nervous and so scared. But I saw all of the police around and said, I don't think that they will try something with all these policemen at the McConnell Center. So I was able to get to my seat, looked at my seat to see if there were any rats and roaches, and there weren't any. And I was able to walk across the stage without incident.
Wow.
And then Dad said, well, now that you've done that, let's go to the University of Florida.
Oh my gosh.
They've been, they've had integration for about a year or two. I said, Dad, listen, let me just tell you something. I need to go to college, to a place where I am in the majority and not in a minority. I need to be able to heal from this traumatic experience.
Yeah.
And I need to go where I'm loved, I'm wanted, I'm appreciated. I can't go to the University of Florida. I must go to a historically black college. And that's what I did.
Dr. Bracy, for everyone who's watching, all of the breath is just been pretty much just sucked out of us. We cannot imagine. Some of us could not have endured what you have endured. So I do know that you all are out there clapping, shouting, screaming. If you could give some hand clap emojis this morning in the comment section to honor this amazing woman. And when I said Wonder Woman had nothing on you, I had not heard all of this story, all of this, the detail. And so the woman that you are today, as we sit here, just imagine, Dr. Bracy, we feel like we're all sitting at your feet and you were just in your lounge chair. You're giving us a really detailed look at what's. There were other students in different parts of the country that also had gone through the steps to integrate all white schools, and so I say thank you. Our hearts go out to you. We know that you have since gone on to be extremely successful, and you have written a children's book now. Successful in every area. You were a ministry leader. You and your husband had started a church, and you are you still very active in ministry, or have you decided now's the time that you get to rest a little bit? Are you still active?
Well, not as I was when we founded the church, but I just decided I was going to take the rest of my life doing things that I really wanted to do that were on my bucket list. And so we we attend some church every Sunday via Zoom, but right now we're just kind of retiring. Now my husband works as a dean at Bethune-Cookman University, so he's still busy, and I'm just busy. I just wrote my book, and I'm doing some things in the community.
Well, we're so glad that you are taking time off, and I mean, you just deserve all the honors. And I'm still overwhelmed and a little bit speechless. So I have to get back on track with my questions when this interview, because I really am just overcome with emotion this morning, and so incredibly thankful that you endured. And at that age, as a teenager, I don't know if you could have imagined all of the generations to come after you, if you could have imagined us voting a Black president into office, if that at that time you were thinking about any of these things, or thinking about us, those of us who are benefiting from your sacrifice.
Yes, what I do know, when you're the first of anything, it's a challenge, it's difficult. I just did not think that I would live to see a Barack Obama become president. That was so emotional for me. And I knew I began praying for him the minute he won, because I knew how difficult that challenge would be for him. Because it's difficult when you're trying to blaze the trail.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, Dr. Bracy, we have several people tuning in from Chicago. For those of you tuning in from Chicago, from our 530 Scholar team, and also I Am Beautiful 365. So, as before we started the broadcast, I shared with Dr. Bracy that there is a wonderful page. You guys got to go check it out. It's called I Am Beautiful 365, and it's celebrating the beauty of Black culture. That's the I Am Beautiful part. But they are a wonderful family who created this page to celebrate the beauty of Black culture. And so check out I Am Beautiful 365. They are tuning in today. We're going live actually on their platform. They have almost 500,000 followers. And so we're grateful that this is going out on that platform. In addition, the 530 Scholars, Dr. Bracy, is a great organization. I was able to do this live stream with as well. And they help students to get into colleges, to raise their test scores. And the 530 Scholars say, they put a comment here, I'm going to get that book right now.
Okay, thank you.
So they're going to get the book. And I definitely want to connect you with those two groups because they are big on educating our children and our babies and helping students go to great schools and have great test scores. So talk to us a little bit about your book and what was your desire for the reader to, what did you want for the reader to take away from reading this book?
Well, I had no intentions of writing a children's book. I had gone to speak for Black History at a League of Women Voters, told my story. And a young lady there told me, you need to write a children's book. I said, oh no, this story is not really for children, it's for adults. 2 weeks later, I was asked to go to an elementary school to speak for Black history and to talk about my story. I was saying, I went to my brother, who's a retired educator. I said, what do I tell kids about this story? He said, well, listen, what you need to do, go to the grocery store, get a white egg, get a brown egg. Begin your story by asking the kids, what's the difference in the white egg and the brown egg? So I went to the grocery store, I did that. I bought the 2 eggs and I asked that question, what's the difference? And the kid says, oh, Dr. Bracy, there's no difference. It's on the inside. It's only difference in the outside. So I began to weave my story by talking about that brown and white egg. That is no difference in the inside. It's only the outside. And I began to tell them my experience as a brown person in an all-white school. And I captivated the kids, and I was really surprised. And after that, about 5 or 6 of them came to me and said, Dr. Bracy, why don't you write this book so the children will understand what happened to you way back then? And I came home and I told my husband, I said, look, those kids asked me to write a children's book. He said, well, that's the second time you heard it. So why haven't you done it? And that's how that book evolved. So I wrote the script out and took it back to that same elementary school to those who had invited me so that they can edit it to make it children friendly. And then I had to find an illustrator. I did this not knowing what I was doing about how do you write a book for children that the story won't offend them, scare them, but would inspire them. So that was my task, and I enjoyed doing it. It was I learned a lot.
Well, I can't wait to get some of these books for some of our viewers and some of their children. We have some folks that said, I just purchased the book. So thank you guys. Thank you to the Good Morning Show family for supporting this. And we had a couple questions here. So you guys, as we wrap this time with Dr. Bracy, we don't want to let her go. We just want to sit here and just kind of glean from your wisdom a little bit more. But there's a few questions. I think you may have answered this one as you were just sharing about getting the book started. But Shanae says, when did you get your voice back? Meaning after what you'd gone through, what age were you when you found your voice to speak the truth I guess publicly speak on what your account was, your story.
Let me tell you this. I spent an entire year, probably 500 kids were in my class. I cannot name one. I had no one to ever speak to me. I spent a year in total silence.
Mm.
When I went to Fisk University in Nashville, Tennessee, I promised myself that I would never be silent again.
Yeah.
I began to register kids to vote. I got active in the student union. I got active. I helped whoever was running for Miss Fisk. I helped her get in there. Whoever was running for student government. I promised myself from that day forward, I'll never be silent again, and I haven't.
Wow. Truly, truly amazing. And we uh, you come with this book. It's absolutely amazing that you wrote this and that this is so timely. I don't even think you could have imagined how timely this book is and what it will mean to children that are going to read this and your own children. So did you know from, I guess, as and I didn't write it down with me. How many children do you have?
I have two
Yeah.
daughters, son and a daughter.
And at what point did you realize that Senator Bracy might be his path to follow in his grandfather's footsteps, his mother's footsteps, to really impact change and serve the community?
I didn't see it in Randy. Randy has always been a very quiet young man. His sister is one who always would be the one that would be the orator and speak. But I think what happened is I ran for school board.
Mm.
Um, and Randy, I said, Randy, you need to be my campaign manager.
Ah,
Randy knew nothing about politics at
yeah.
all, but he was so engaged in being the campaign manager. And I said to him, I said, we live in an area that is predominantly white. And I says, there are not blacks running in predominantly white areas. Every time we get an office to run for, we're running in an area that is predominantly black. I said, so I'm going to run for school board. And I says, we somebody needs to be the first. So he says, okay, mom, I'm going to be your campaign manager.
Mm.
So I got to the runoff, and I got there because of Randy working so very hard to
Wow.
making sure that people knew I was here. And I think that's when he got the bug that he says, well, you know, I did this for my mom. Let's see if I can make a difference. And that's how he really got started in the political scene.
So amazing. And we talk a lot about on the show being that our platform, our foundation is a platform and a foundation of faith, that there's purpose in our lives and that we have been created for purpose. You were created as much as it pained us to hear the story, and we know that the hardship that you went through, God destined you for that purpose. And so we're so grateful that you're walking and you continue to walk in purpose, even with a brave little cookie. As we're sharing this, we're hoping that the book really blesses all of you. We're going to get into a couple more questions and then we're going to wrap our broadcast. So Cherry Ann Bryant says, Dr. Bracy, what advice would you give to a new aspiring activist and advocate for empowerment in the African American community that isn't starting activism later in life? So what would you give to, that is starting activism a little later in life? So someone who's a little bit older in the 40s.
Yeah. Right. Well, what I would say to if it's your passion, know know what area that you're really interested in. Research the area, understand what needs to be done, and then come up with a strategy of how I can impact and make a difference. And so often we think that we need thousands and thousands of people. You can start with two, three, four people having them to understand and grow that movement to be very impactful. We all can be activists in things that really matter and decide that if I'm going to be on this earth, I'm going to make it better.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Great question, Sherry Ann. Thank you so much again. And the book, let me put up the website so I can get back on track here. I was totally totally thrown off track this morning. This has been absolutely wonderful. The book is A Brave Little Cookie. Go to bravelittlecookie.com and you guys can place an order there. Is this on Amazon as well, Dr. Bracy?
I don't have it on Amazon yet, and I guess everybody continues to ask me that. I've just, I'm very new at this. Even though I have written 2 books before this one, this is the first one that everyone is saying, "Are you on Amazon yet?" So I just put this little website up, and maybe I need to try to expand what I'm doing.
No, absolutely. I think it should be everywhere that books can be sold. So, but you all can go to bravelittlecookie.com. I'm with Dr. LaVon Wright Bracy this morning. And thank you so much again for saying yes to coming on the show. Let me make sure we don't have any questions as we close out. I think we do have one more question. We'll close out with Warren Edwards from I Am Beautiful, one of the founders of I Am Beautiful 365 platform. Thank you so much again to your platform and for all that you're doing to talk about the beauty of Black culture. Warren says, today, the racism experience in schools are a lot more subtle, but it is alive and well. Would you recommend sending children to predominantly white schools at a young age or wait until college?
Oh, wow. I just think that we have to let our children know that we have to live in this society, and that during today, if they have to go to an all-white school, that they can endure, they can understand what racism is about. It is subtle, it's still there, but if we want our kids to be an all-around kid, let's send them to the best schools wherever they are.
Oh, great question and great answer. Warren followed that up with, where can we learn about the 2 other books that you just mentioned that as we close? Where can we find the information about the other books?
Well, one, I'm revising again. The one of them is Beyond Bravery. It's the adult version of my story, and I go in a lot more detail. And I'm about to I have revised it, and so it will be out within the next, I guess, 6 months or so. And the first book I did, I used to live in Philadelphia, and I lived there when Wilson Goode was the first Black mayor of the city of Philadelphia. And they had this incident with what's called the move, whereby the city bombed the houses, and so many people lost their lives in that event. And so I wrote a book, Making Them Whole, because I was assigned to work with the kids who had lost, all the families who had lost their homes and help them restore it. So I wrote that book, and I had one purpose in mind, to write that book and put all the money from that book into a scholarship fund so that the kids who would go to college who lost their homes, and I could contribute to their college. And that's what I was able to do. That was that book.
Well, I can assure you, Good Morning Show family, that I will be in touch with Dr. Bracy, and when everything is revised and ready to launch, we will be there to support you. So, so again, the book is A Brave Little Cookie. Go to bravelittlecookie.com, and we want to support you in any of your upcoming projects or anything that you have. Dr. Bracy, I'm going to have you stay on with me here for just a second as we wrap the broadcast. Thank you again. My guest this morning, Dr. LaVon Wright Bracy, the author of A Brave Little Cookie. You see the website on the page here. Go ahead and check it out. I do want to also make another announcement. I want to share with you all that we have a virtual voter registration drive happening on Facebook, Dr. Bracy. I'm going to show you all the graphic really quickly here, but on Saturday, July 11th at 6 p.m. We are going live. I will be directing this virtual voter registration drive. I'm so excited about this. Thank you to Rebecca Lang. She'll be hosting this. She's a local event and wedding planner here in the local Central Florida area, and she has coordinated this amazing outreach. Register your voice. So tune in Saturday, July 11th. If you visit Rebecca Lang's page, you will be able to sign up for the event. So again, Saturday, July 11th. If you haven't registered to vote, family, I would really encourage you to join this event and learn more so that you can all register your voice. Again, have a great day, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the Good Morning Show, your place of faith in the morning. My guest, Dr. Bracy, thank you for joining us. And I'm going to have you wait backstage with me as we say our goodbyes. Don't forget, tomorrow is Worldwide Wednesday, and we have a team, a wonderful ministry team, joining us from South Africa. So the show is global, and this month we are talking about how music can bring healing, how worship can bring healing to our nation. We all are in need of healing right now. So please join me tomorrow, 7:45 a.m. Eastern. Until next time, everyone, bye-bye.